Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Kernersville Board of Aldermen. Today is Tuesday, February 7th, 2023, and we're happy to have you all here. We'll begin with an invocation by Minister David Miller of Triad Church of Christ.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this another good day of life. And God, we thank you for the privilege of being able to come together tonight in this public forum. Lord, we're thankful for all those that are here tonight. We're thankful, Father, for their interest, Father, in town government and for their interest in the continuing progress of this town. Lord, I pray that you'd bless the proceedings here tonight. I pray, Father, that everyone might conduct themselves with the highest regard, Father, to everyone else's feelings and differences as well, Lord. I pray, God, that something constructive may come out of this meeting tonight. And I pray, Lord, that our town might achieve its ultimate goal, Father, which is to best serve its citizens. Lord, again, we thank you for this day, and we ask now your blessings upon our town council as they convene once more tonight. For it's in Christ Jesus' name we pray, and amen.
Thank you, Pastor Miller. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of the Republic, one nation, God, liberty. Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, tonight we've got 3 public hearings, but they're all related. We have an annexation, we have a public hearing on the Kernersville Development Plan, and we have a public hearing on a rezoning. So our rules for a public hearing: persons attended shall be permitted to address the Board of Aldermen regarding the item under consideration. Those speaking in favor, speaking first, and those against, speaking second. Proponents and opponents shall each be given 20 minutes of time to speak and may choose to allow one speaker to utilize that time or choose to allocate the time amongst different speakers. If they've not allocated the time amongst themselves, the mayor shall divide the time. After the opponents speak, the mayor will allow the proponents 5 minutes for rebuttal. If the proponents exercise this option, the opponents also have 5 minutes for rebuttal. In the event the proponents do not present a rebuttal, then the opponents shall be given no further time to speak. The complete guidelines are printed on our agenda and are displayed on the screen. Okay, so I think we'll do all the presentations together, though. Okay, our Community Development Director, Catherine Garner, will do the presentations for items A, B, and C together, but we'll need to split up some of the public hearings and definitely the votes. So at this point in time, I'll recognize Ms. Garner.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Our first item A on your agenda, is the public hearing for the annexation. This is the one parcel that's been acquired as part of the Atkins Farm project. You see a copy of their annexation petition on the screen. This is the parcel that's subject to annexation. The rest of the portions of the property that is under consideration have previously been annexed. So it is just this one parcel at 7501 Watkins Ford Road, approximately 1.543 acres. Before I move on to anything else, are there any questions on this? Great. Next, moving into the Kernersville Development Plan Amendment and then the rezoning. Would be items B and C on the agenda. The first one is the Land Use Plan Amendment. It is an amendment from rural residential to low-density residential, which would be consistent with the rest of the Atkins Farm development as it was approved last year. So this is just for the new parcel at 7501 Watkins Ford Road. It is currently zoned rural or designated as rural residential on the land use plan. The tan color here is traditional neighborhood development. That's Caleb's Creek. And then the more yellow color, or the brighter yellow color, is low density residential, which is consistent with the existing Atkins Farm designation. Low density residential is defined as low-density residential or areas with a density of 0 to 3 units per acre, unless the area has a lower density, then 0 to 2 units per acre shall be considered, but the rezoning fits within the 0 to 3 units per acre and is lower than many of the surrounding neighborhoods, which we'll cover shortly. The land use plan amendment is supported by several trends. We are a growing community within a growing metropolitan region. Our population grew by over 14% between the 2010 and 2020 census. This proposed development is located on the edge of town around the Caleb's Creek and other newer single-family subdivisions and more rural single-family homes and older subdivisions. So as the town continues to grow, it's advisable to approve development that serves as that more gradual transition from rural agricultural land to denser urban housing. Going back to what I just said is that most of these neighborhoods surrounding Caleb's Creek being one of them are significantly more dense than what is proposed. Housing market trends wise, rising housing prices and demographic shifts are also causing an increased demand for smaller lot owner occupied housing. So Planning Board and staff's recommendation on the KDP amendment is approval of the resolution designating PIN number 6873963812 as low-density residential. This was heard at the January Planning Board meeting, and this was the vote for sitting members. The rezoning request, K798.A1, is an amendment to the rezoning of K798, which you heard last year, because there's a new site plan to go along with it. So it's rezoning the parcel that is under consideration for annexation from Forsyth County Agricultural to Kernersville RS7C, and then rezoning all the area that's already zoned RS7C back to RS7C to adopt that new site plan that would include the new parcel. Total, it's 84.919 acres approximately. They are increasing the number of units from 216, which was approved last year, to 222, but it keeps the units per acre at 2.61. It was 2.6 previously. So you can see in the teal color, this is Forsyth County agricultural, and then this blue color that's hatched in, that's the area that was zoned RS7C last year. The other colors that have the red labels on them, those are Kernersville zoning districts. So this is portions of Caleb's Creek, and then this is the Atkins Farm subdivision that was approved last year. The site plan that is under consideration for tonight, which is why we're looking at Atkins Farm in totality again, just shy of 85 acres clocking in at 84.919, 222 single-family detached units. That has not changed from the original. And it just bumps up the units per acre from 2.6 to 2.61. So we're sticking with the RS7C zoning district. We're adding the additional acreage from the new lot and revising the site-specific plan. The lots still vary in size from 7,039 to 34,393, so quite a range in sizes. Lots will still be served by public water and sewer. Part of this acquisition came about from trying to obtain an easement for the sewer coming down Watkins Ford Road. Mr. Blackburn said, well, I'll just sell you the property. So that's how we got to where we are. So this is the overall site plan. It stays remarkably the same. What has changed is with this new parcel that he was able to acquire, they straightened out the road to come into Watkins Ford Road a little bit more cleanly, and then they were able to add a fire apparatus access cut through here on their property rather than having to upgrade Farm Creek Road and send any emergency vehicles all the way down through here. So it shortens it and it keeps it on their property, and they would still have the fire apparatus access until such time as a second entrance ever came to be about on the adjacent properties. The connection point would still be here on this cul-de-sac. We're recommending the condition that it still be gated with a Knox box to prevent people from being able to cut through, but make it accessible to first responders in an emergency. This is the portion on Watkins Ford Road. So you can see that the entrance to the neighborhood straightened out just a little bit. It previously had a little bit more of a curve. So it straightens out a little bit. And then this is the portion where the fire apparatus access road would cut off, the remainder of Farm Creek Road, providing more direct access. And then this is the northern end of the site plan. This has stayed the same. The density, it is still consistent with the town's long-approved standard for low-density residential of less than 3 units per acre. Nearby developments, Brunswick is at 3.62, Watkins Landing's at 2.89, and then several of the Caleb's Creek range from 1.62 to 3.44. So it's quite a mix, but this is one of the lower density projects of that area. And this shows those other developments in relation to this site. Land use plan we covered with the KDP amendment. It's currently rural residential, and then the low density residential existing, and then the land use plan amendment would just apply to that one parcel to bring it to be consistent with what was done last year. Building designs and elevations have remained the same from the previous rezoning. And like we've talked about with the stub street, they're able to provide the fire apparatus access here, and then they're providing stub streets to parcels that are adjacent in case those ever develop and annex into the town, then we could provide connectivity at that time. That would be consistent with our subdivision ordinance. So the staff analysis is similar with the KDP. We're a growing community. We need new housing to accommodate that growing population and support the economic development activities that we are doing and have going on in our area. This development is located on the edge of town between Caleb's Creek and other single-family subdivisions. There is a trend towards smaller lot owner-occupied housing, and the proposed density is consistent with other low-density subdivisions, particularly in that area. And it has been designed in a thoughtful manner to protect the environmentally sensitive areas. There is some wetlands portion down along Watkins Ford Road, so they've tried to adjust their design to account for that as well. So Planning Board and staff's recommendation is to amend the Unified Development Ordinance from the town of Kernersville by rezoning the properties from Forsyth County Ag and Kernersville RS7C to all Kernersville RS7C, finding that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and both reasonable and in the public interest because the conditional district process allows that site-specific plan. The submitted design incorporates watershed protection, and the proposed development will help meet the demand for additional single-family housing with a variety of lot sizes. And Planning Board and staff also recommend approval of the site plan subject to the conditions in the staff report. And then this was the vote of Planning Board members sitting at the January Planning Board meeting. And I will be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Catherine, just for my education, I understand, and from your staff analysis as well, that at the time a site plan like this is submitted, that it goes to the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. Can you tell me just a little bit about that process? Once it goes to them, do we have any further responsibility, or do we monitor that any going forward?
We send to the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School System and a variety of other interagency reviewers or people that we work with closely, like DOT, City County Utilities, as part of our development review committee meetings. So that happens prior to going to Planning Board. What Forsyth County Schools chooses to do with this information, I don't know. But they do receive a copy of every rezoning that we receive and comes across our desks and our processing for Planning Board, so they are aware of what's going on. We do talk to them routinely about things that are going on, but how this factors into their planning and their number crunching, I just don't know.
But the point is that we let them know as soon as we know.
That is correct.
And then we would hope that they would fulfill their responsibilities.
Correct.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions of staff at this time? All right, these are public hearings. So first we will do 1A, public hearing on the annexation. I'll declare the public hearing open. I have signed up to speak David Michaels. So I recognize Mr. Michaels at this time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. My name is David Michaels. I'm with Windsor Investments. You might recognize me from about 6 months ago being here. I I do have a presentation that would cover all aspects of the three cases before you tonight. I don't want to belabor or repeat any points that Ms. Garner has already made. She does an excellent job of presenting staff's position and the things that we have talked about before we even get to this point, and of course through the planning board process. But I will touch on a couple of points and then be happy to answer really any questions that you may have of me. So my address is 1007 Battleground Avenue in Greensboro. Next slide, please. I am here for Windsor Investments. We are a builder developer in the Triad. We built over 3,500 homes in the Triad, active in the Kernersville market and a number of neighborhoods, locally owned and managed company. As Ms. Garner alluded to, most of this land was zoned, annexed, and approved last summer. Final approval on June the 7th after a number of different meetings, not only with this board and the neighbors. We came to a favorable approval of the majority of this site. Next slide, please. After that, as we went to work on trying to secure some of the sewer easements that are required to service this property along Watkins Ford Road, Mr. Blackburn, one of the adjoiners, had really indicated that his preference would be not to grant an easement, but to sell his acre-and-a-half parcel. So after some negotiations with him, we were able to reach a contract agreement to purchase that. And it does make a lot of sense to add that little piece to this proposal. Next slide, please. Again, about an acre-and-a-half. We're adding 6 lots total to our previously approved site plan, which we really haven't changed anything on the northern end of that. We're just annexing this small piece, and all the zoning conditions that applied before to the site plan will still apply to what we are proposing tonight. Next slide, please. You can't see that very well, but that is the entire prior site plan. The next slide, please, shows a new alignment of the road as it connects to Watkins Ford Road. Next slide, please. That's the old alignment. Ms. Garner's already made reference to a number of changes in this location. And then the next slide, please, shows our currently proposed alignment of the entrance road coming into the site. And in this case, north is to the right, west is to the upper part of the screen. So Watkins Ford is on the very left-hand side, right? The Blackburn parcel is in the upper left corner of the site. We were able to shift the entrance to the subdivision to the west, away from the stream crossing, which is further to the east on the property, away from a wetland area that's already been designated and delineated. And it really makes for, I think, a better location and a much better access point for the potential emergency access if we get to the point of actually having to construct that. We would not have to make any improvements to the section of Farm Creek Road where it goes across the stream again. All that would just remain intact. We would tie into a point on the west side of that stream. And then the Atkins and the other folks who use Farm Creek Road could continue to use that access personally to access their homes along Farm Creek Road, but we would have the gate and everything up at the cul-de-sac like was already approved in the previous submittal. So next slide. Again, those are just the points that, just to reiterate, moving the entrance. This also would reduce the depth of the sewer line that would have to be installed. And so it would make that a much easier installation and a maintenance possibility for that sewer line by not having to be so deep along Watkins Ford Road. So again, no changes to the northern part of the site. We're able to reposition the central mailbox area a little bit more effectively, so it would be more convenient to the residents of the neighborhood. So, next slide, please. We did reach out to the neighborhood back in October. We had a couple of procedural delays to get us to this point in February, but we did have a meeting virtually with 19 homes were offered, and a few of those, about 5 residents were in participation in that meeting. Next slide, please. We talked a little about the timing of the development, which this would be a phased development. We wouldn't put 220 lots out there at one time. The first group of lots would be about 40 to 42 lots. All of the stormwater management requirements, the drainage issues, the ponds that were discussed so much at the previous hearings, all that would remain exactly the same. Watkins Ford Road, we have had additional conversations with the DOT to confirm that they would require a left turn and a right turn lane along Watkins Ford Road at our expense that we would be obligated to put in to serve this neighborhood. So, and then there was some question about the interim use of the land. Mr. Atkins, who we haven't purchased all the property. We have a right to purchase the rest of it, but he would maintain some farming activities for a little while until we got to the point of acquiring the rest of the property. But the goal here tonight is, again, and I don't expect to have to come back with any more additions, would be to finalize this site plan, finalize our sewer easement acquisition, and then move on with the development of the site for the first 42 lots. And that would be a multi-phase, a multi-year project going forward to work our way through the entire site. So next slide. Really, I'm going to skip through these. This is points that I've really already made, talking about timing, interim use. Next slide, Ms. Garner. Stormwater, 3 ponds, everything will be maintained by the HOA. Really no change to that. Next slide, please. I talked about the DOT. Of course, they would have to look at a final design, but we do have a sketch and a more detailed layout that they have already reviewed. Next slide, please. And that's fairly difficult to read, I'm sure, but it does show the existing conditions, and then the proposed widening is shaded in at the bottom. Next slide, please. The homes and everything, nothing's changed. These are basically the same slides that I presented last time. So, Ms. Garner, you can go ahead and skim through these. Nothing's really changed there. So, in summary, appreciate the board's indulgence and consideration of these requests. We do feel like it's reasonable at working off of an already approved site plan, basically just making some minor adjustments to it that we feel like will provide better access, reduce the environmental impact of the neighborhood, provide easier utility maintenance, and it would be consistent in density and in keeping with what would be a low-density residential neighborhood to fit the land use plan amendment. It's a key growth area for Kernersville, built by a local builder, and we would have a homeowner association which would maintain everything. So, happy to answer any questions about any of the 3 cases, but I would ask for your support and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Michaels. Is there anyone else here in favor? All right, is there anyone here who'd like to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Do I have a motion on 1A, the annexation? Could you more fully state your motion?
Sure. Motion to approve 1A, the annexation.
Okay, got a motion by Alderman Thompson,
Second.
second by Mayor Pro Tem Apple. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? Mr. Hooker, did you get the vote? 4-1? All right. Okay, item B is the public hearing on the Kernersville Development Plan. This is a public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing open. Mr. Michaels, you've signed up to speak on this item. Do you have anything additional to add?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the Kernersville Development Plan? Seeing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the Kernersville Development Plan? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Is there further discussion, or do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion we approve the proposed land use plan amendment.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Apple,
Second.
second by Alderman Gorham. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? It's 4-1, Mr. Hooker. All right, item C is the public hearing on the rezoning. I'll declare the public hearing open for zoning docket K798A1. Mr. Michaels, you've also signed up to speak on this matter. Would you like to speak? Okay, thank you. Are there any other proponents of this rezoning who'd like to speak at this time? Seeing none, is there anyone here in opposition to the rezoning who'd like to speak at this time? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed.
Motion to approve 1C, rezoning.
Okay, I have a motion by Alderman Thompson,
Second.
second by Alderman Gorham. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? It's 4-1. Mr. Hooker, have you got the vote? Okay, we'll move on to the public session. Thank you for your presentation. We'll move on now to the public session. Is there anyone who'd like to address the board on a non-agenda item? Seeing none, we'll move on to item B, consideration of a resolution authorizing the acceptance of grant funds from North Carolina Department of Public Safety, Governor's Crime Commission. Mr. Swisher?
Madam Mayor and Board, Police Department applied for and was awarded a grant in the amount of $20,667.50. It's the Ed Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant. We are requesting approval of that grant, and we will be using it to purchase 5 mobile police radios. There's no matching funds required from the town, so that money would be directly from that grant.
Okay, are there any questions or further information needed? Do I have a motion?
I'd make a motion to accept.
Got a motion to accept the grant from Alderman Vera. Got a second by Alderman Penix. All those in favor, raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Item C is a budget amendment number 7.
You have in your packet the budget amendment. These items, with the exception of one, have previously been discussed, and the one may have been, I can't remember. The first expenditure in there is the grant that was just awarded. You have that expenditure and have the offsetting revenue as well. The second expenditure is the approval of the expenditure for the design of the Mountain Street sidewalk project that the board approved last week. You have the $538,000, $538,399. It also has 80% of the revenue in there as offsetting revenue. We have $500,000 in pavement repairs that we have done where they've done the utility cuts in the roadways. So if those roadways are town-owned roads, we went back and paved those roads in most places in the entirety instead of just right around where the cut was. We also have an offsetting revenue for that. And then the last one, the board approved selling a truck last week to the city of High Point. And you have in there replacement of a pickup truck that we currently use to deliver cans out when someone calls in for a new can or we have new development, new subdivision or whatever. The current truck that we use for that is no longer operable, so we're replacing that vehicle with the money that we received last week from High Point for the sale of the truck. So you have all of those in there, and you have all of the revenues to reflect as well that offset most of that. There is $107,000 appropriation from the fund balance to make that balance, and that is basically the 20% of our portion of the sidewalk project.
Are there any questions? Do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the ordinance as stated.
Okay, Okay, I've got a motion by Alderman Gorham. I've got a second, I think, by
I'll
Mr.
second.
Barrow. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous. Mr. Hooker, did you get the motion in second? Okay, thank you. All right, item D is updates on progress of parks and recreation projects. Mr. Swisher?
Mr. Pages will update the board on Civitan Park, and Mr. Maltby will update the board on the Greenway, and he also, I think, has a site plan to show you of the proposed parking lot on North Cherry Street.
Good evening. I prepared a quick slideshow for you guys to see. If you can go to the first slide. So I know this is black and white, but this is the final rendition of the site layout for Civitan Park. So far we've made pretty good progress with it, starting in August of last year. We're headed pretty quickly with the work, and then rain came in and kind of slowed us down a little bit. But if you go to the next slide, I'd like to cover most of the amenities that we've been able to attack. Right now, the park is sitting between 60 to 65% complete. Once we hit 80% completion, we can start applying for reimbursements from the grants that we received for the project. Of the amenities that we have in the plan, right now, pickleball, tennis, and the basketball courts are sitting around 80% complete. If you go out there now, you see the blacktop asphalt. The fencing is up. The lights are installed. Court 1 is out there today, drilling and putting their posts up for the pickleball nets and the tennis courts nets as well. So they're out there today getting work done. The shelters have been installed, completely and assembled with the shingles and the concrete slabs. So those are done. Now it's a matter of just waiting for the ground to dry up, level it off, and do our landscaping pieces. The baseball field is 90% complete. If you go out there now, we have grass, we have fencing, we have the entryways, everything's in place. The clay's been leveled out, installed. We just have to put our base anchors, home plate, pitcher's mound, all that good stuff. The Novant Health Fitness Court is 100% complete. The parking lot expansion so far, if you go out there now, it's in about 60%. We've graded off the expansion part. We've gravelled it. Our medians are in place for landscaping. The only piece now, the remaining is, that'll be the last thing to be done. But the current part will be capped with new asphalt, and then the expansion will be brand new asphalt, so it'll be seamless and restriped. The challenge course, which is the playground unit, is 30% complete. The site's been leveled off and graded. It's a matter of waiting for the dirt to dry up so we can do our footings and all that good stuff. And the Sona Interactive Arch is 30% complete. If you go out there now, the circle's in place. It's just too wet to do anything else other than that. All the power has been stubbed up for electronical connections. We're going to gravel it. We're going to put some pour in place surfacing, and then we'll put what they call the fun mat, which you'll see in a second. If you go to the next slide. These are just pictures of the baseball field. Next. The two shelters. Next. The fitness court. Next. And then in the far distance, the best I can get without getting muddy, is your pickleball and your tennis courts with the lights and the fencing already installed. We're just waiting for their surfacing and everything else. All right, next. So this is a challenge course. I hope the video plays. A lot of times the word has been out that there's no playground, quote unquote. This is a challenge course. I wanted to give you guys a kind of a preview of what it is. last year challenge course, so a lot of people said we don't have a playground. This is a little bit different type of playground. It's more challenging for older children. If you look at the playground you have right down the street, which is at 4th, it's an all-inclusive playground, but once you get past the age of 10 or so, there's not a whole lot that attracts an older child. So this is more along the lines of some of our older children. And then finally, the coolest piece, my favorite part of the whole park, is the Sono Play Arch. A lot of people don't have these, haven't seen these, haven't interacted with these. It's a cloud-based interactive unit for all ages. The unit actually interacts with a child or adult or whoever, and it stimulates STEM growth by playing games. So with that, go ahead and play. You can.
Press the button to play a game. Reaction race. Great job. Gymnastics, step in place. Animal dance. Dance as silly as you can. Woohoo! Yelp Sona. Let's play.
Cool. So that's the coolest part. It's a new company that came out a couple of years ago. There's a barcode reader on the unit. You can pick up the 15 different types of games, and then once you hit play, it will interact and play that game with whoever triggers that game. And then on the back side, we get to monitor how many games get played, which ones are most often get played, which are not, and we can switch out the games with 65 other games to keep it fresh and keep it new for everybody that comes in. There's only one other piece in the state, one other park system that has this, and it's Asheville. It's the only other one in the state. The other one closest to us is in Georgia. So that's kind of a special piece for Kernersville. So it was really great to have that piece. But so far, that's the update from the park, and open up for questions.
How many pickleball and how many tennis courts are there?
We've got 3 pickleball courts that are dedicated pickleball and then 4 tennis. So what we're doing, to back this up, we just received our last 3 bids for the projects we received from the state funds. At 4th, we're going to completely renovate the basketball court. And the tennis courts are going to be resurfaced and restriped. So we'll have 6, depends on how you look at it, 4 tennis courts, but they'll be striped for both games. So give us a total inventory of 8 tennis and 9 pickleballs in Kernersville total. So that will give us a good balance for both sports. And once we finish the Civitan, we're going to go through and do a reservation process so that we can split up and govern the amount of play on each one, and they won't be trying to stop the conflicts on the courts.
And then I've heard a lot of comments over the years that there should be more swings at 4th of July Park. Is that possible to put into the long-term plan?
We've got a quote. I'm waiting for a quote from Game Time, Cunningham Associates, the same folks that did the playground out there, to square off the playground, kind of teardrops a little bit, square it off and do a whole nother set of swings. So I'm waiting for that quote to come in because it'll require some tree removal, some grouting, expansion, new pour in place, and all that stuff. So it's not going to be cheap, but that's the best way to do it. The problem though you run into is when you put adaptive swings in, the amount of space it requires for safety eats up the space that we've got. So we have to do a whole nother brand new set of swings.
And then one other thing that is of concern, that the park entrance on the Bodenhammer side has just not been as updated and kind of cared for as the park entrance to 4th of July Park on the Mountain Street side. Mm-hmm. And I think that we ought to kind of put that in the plan to improve that the look of that little parking lot there. We've got that really nice first responders area with the wonderful fence, the oak tree, the bronzes, but
I've heard that too. The biggest thing I've heard is the welcome sign or the sign itself. So when I was gonna go out is once we start looking for signs for Civitan, to go ahead and put a new sign for 4th of July and get them both done at the same time.
Okay, and maybe look at the landscaping. Some of it's gotten a little bit overgrown in that, around that sign.
Right.
Okay.
We'll work on that.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
I've got one.
Go ahead, Mr. Penix.
What kind of surface are the pickleball and tennis courts?
Same, asphalt, and then you'll have an acrylic paint that surfaces, gives it the color, and then you'll have the stripes. But they're both asphalt. There's not many done in concrete anymore. They're all asphalt.
Well, I think what you're doing is wonderful.
Thank you.
Because that park really needed an update.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
But I'm amazed at how playgrounds have changed since John Bear and I were playing on our one playground in Kernersville. What do we have, one swing?
Some swings and a seesaw
A seesaw.
and a slide that if you fell off the top of it, you'd break your arm.
Yeah.
Alderman Penix, I'm wondering if the arch, the electronic arch, will interact with our hearing aids. Is that a possibility?
So Bluetooth it. It works that way.
And that slide was so hot. It would get so hot. Now the slides are made out of something not quite as hot.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. It's important to keep our parks updated and adapt to changing times. Thank you for your work, Ernie. Mr. Maltba.
Catherine, will you go ahead and bring up the part? There you go. Curtis asked me to bring this in. Really wasn't an update to the parking lot, but just this is the current approved design. And at the top here, that's the entrance on Cherry Street. Existing parking lot and the new one. So it's 56 spaces. Alderman Barrow asked at last meeting if we could save that tree, which I have verified we can. We will have to do some trimming of the limbs that hang over. And there's still a chance, because those trees have, their roots are pretty surface bound, that we could cut a root, could damage it, but we'll try. But it appears to be all behind the existing curb right now. Again, we will start sometime in May, and our goal is to be completed by the end of July.
Thank you.
But now for the next project, which is the Greenway, I think I need Ernie's arch, because I think I need to run the contractor through it so they can come back to work and do something. But, and to start, I will say this. I've been here a long time, and I do believe this may be the first project I've ever delivered late. And believe me, the contractors heard about it already. So the original completion date was February 1st of this year. So in a minute, I'll give you an update as to why we're late. But the current contract completion date due to change orders is May 12th. However, they will not make that date either, because we have other issues. And the biggest problem with the Greenway right now, besides, like, as Ernie mentioned, is the water is subgrade conditions.
Mr. Maltba, if I could stop you there, the microphone is sometimes picking you up and not. If you could maybe move it somewhere.
How about now?
Maybe just speak a little louder.
Okay. The biggest problem is subgrade conditions. They're so poor that we're still trying to get out of the ground. The boardwalk had to be redesigned. The bridge had to be redesigned for piles instead of a spread footing, which, to give you an idea, when they drilled the foundations for the bridge, they have a thing called auger refusal. That's how far can you drill until you hit bedrock. It was 60 feet deep. So they had to go back and redesign the bridge foundations to be set on piles. So currently those piles are being manufactured. So there's like a 60 to 90 day delay on the piles. So we're actually looking at, now I guess, is somewhere in August will be the actual completion time. Once we can get everything out of the ground, the actual grading and paving of the walkway itself won't take hardly any time. We also have the other big issue with the project has been utilities, specifically sanitary sewer. We've had to cross that line several times, and where we did, we had to do what they've been doing downtown, which is pipe burst and replace it with plastic pipe. So that has slowed us down. And we discovered a pipe they didn't know existed. So we had to relay that pipe in a different direction. So again, getting out of the ground is the hard part. As far as funds, we are over budget. The original contract price was 1.6 million. With the current change orders, we're at 1.9. But right now, about 170 to 200,000 that's reimbursable out of other accounts, such as our sewer fund. So I will keep giving you updates as we go. The contractor's supposed to be back within the next 2 weeks. And once he comes back, he's supposed to be here till they finish, because they're currently under liquidated damages for every day they're late right now. So we would be looking again August and having a ribbon cutting ceremony sometime around the end of August.
Any questions? Thank you for the update. Thank you for staying on top of the situation and for all your messages and communications with this contractor. We appreciate your diligence in working on the issues relating to this project.
I look forward to turning it over to Ernie for maintenance.
All right. Any other questions relating to parks? All right, we are to the consent agenda. The following matters are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the matter will be removed from the consent agenda and considered under the following item. A, approval of minutes for the January 4 closed session. B, approval of minutes for the January 10 closed session. C, consideration of a resolution declaring a seat as vacated on the Board of Adjustment. And D, appointment of members to volunteer boards and commissions. Is there anyone who'd like to remove any of the items from the consent agenda? Citizens attending the meeting, staff, elected officials? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Alderman Thompson,
Second.
second by Alderman Gorham. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Before we move on, let me say that we had so many outstanding applicants to serve on boards and commissions. There weren't enough seats to appoint them all, but I really appreciate the community stepping up and showing their interest in being involved and the outstanding caliber of the applicants we got. It is disheartening that citizens care so much about this community and the future of our town. So we appreciate everyone who indicated a willingness to serve, and I'm delighted to welcome the new appointees to these boards and commissions. All right, items removed from the consent agenda. There were none. Town manager's report.
Madam Mayor, I have two items. One of them I'll cover, and then the other one will be a brief presentation by the police department. But you have before you at your place there two letters. One of them is from the Department of Community and Economic Development for Forsyth County, and the other one is from Greater Winston-Salem, Inc. Both of these are in regards to the same issue. John Deere has requested a funding to do a express design and feasibility study for the extension of Linville Springs Road to go over, and it'll come from Linville Springs is already on the plan to be widened at some point in time and it'll connect with Macy Grove when Macy Grove Road comes up to Piney Grove. And they're also asking for the feasibility of extending Linville Springs on over toward the back part of John Deere. The ultimate plan would be that road would come out of the back of John Deere. OmniSource and John Deere both could access that road. They would take it over to Dobson Street, connect with Linville Springs, take Linville Springs over to Macy Grove, and then from Macy Grove, get on to Salem Parkway, going either way. Take a lot of the truck traffic off of Mountain Street at some point in the future. And also it would take a lot of the truck traffic from John Deere, because once Macy Grove gets to Piney Grove Road, that truck route will shift. Most likely those trucks will go to the roundabout there on Bodenhammer Street and then go out Dobson Street, up Linville Springs, and get to Macy Grove that way instead of going down Bodenhammer. So you still got the same truck traffic, it's kind of just shifting patterns. So John Deere is aware of that, and they're already planning ahead, saying, hey, future truck traffic would be better if we could come out of the back of our property. It would go pretty much in line with the property that the town just sold to Cooper Brantley, who made the offer on it. Ms. Garner has a better map of it than what you have in your packet. John Deere is, can you point where John Deere is on there, Catherine? You see where she's circling there, John Deere. And so it's kind of hard to see, but Linville Springs Road is right in there. So that road would extend across, basically going to the west. And it would tie in the back there. Along the property that the town sold, some property that Eccles has sold. And like I say, it would then come out. And if they can get it done, I don't know how far down the road that would be, but that would be a great extension if they can get it done. There's some property in there, obviously, that would have to be acquired. There's no right-of-way easements or any of that. But they're asking now just for the Board of Aldermen to give a letter of support to send to the state, the DOT board, asking for funding for that feasibility study. So if you all are so inclined to approve that, we will get a letter drafted, and either myself or Mayor Morgan can sign it and send on to the DOT board. And the letter will be very similar to the one that you have from either the county or from Greater Winston-Salem. We'll probably pretty much go in line with what they've requested. And they have met, John Deere folks have met with, they met with Pat Ivy, a couple of the county commissioners, as well as one or two of the state representatives in regards to this. And they're all supportive. They just, saying, hey, you need to get some letters of support and send to us, and we'll see what we can do. Be glad to answer any questions.
How much of an increase in traffic would that add to Linville Springs Road?
It's hard to say. I mean, probably from where they are right now. I mean, I don't know how many trucks they have going out of there, but it's going to add it anyway to Linville Springs once they widen Linville Springs, because the trucks will just go through the roundabout. So, it will depend on, I think, how many trucks they have going out that use Salem Parkway as opposed to how many use Interstate 40 versus how many will use the new beltway that goes up to 52. And I just don't know those numbers, but whatever the numbers are that are now used and basically going up to the roundabout and going down Bodenhammer Street, they seem to think, and honestly, I think they're probably right. The majority of those, once Linville Springs is widened, the majority of those will just go through the roundabout and get on Linville Springs. So if this road is constructed, is what it will do is take them off of that portion of Mountain Street and Bodenhammer up to the roundabout, and it'll just take them straight over to Linville Springs. So I think Linville Springs will, once it's widened and Macy Grove comes up to Piney Grove, Linville Springs is going to see a lot of truck traffic anyway. And it really does. It depends a lot on just how where they're going as to which way they take. And I just don't know those numbers of what uses Bodenhammer Street now.
So Curtis, what you're saying is this is gonna take a big load off of Bodenhammer Street, correct?
It should, yes. And it should take a big load off of Mountain Street. Because, right now, all of the trucks from OmniSource coming from the east, and basically all of the trucks going to Deer Hitachi coming from the east are going to the east when they leave.
Right.
Use Bodenhammer and Mountain Street right there. So at some point in the future, I think it will take a lot of that traffic off. I would say probably 75 or 80% of it. And it's what you will see are the ones that go out. A lot of them would probably still go west on Mountain Street, though they may not. They could go out and hit Mason Grove Road, take it over, and then go back up Salem Parkway. So I just don't know the numbers, but once it's done, it would take a lot of the truck traffic that's going to the east for sure off of Mountain Street and Bodenhammer.
And this road that we see here, it's ultimately gonna hook up to 52, is that correct?
No, it will terminate right now unless DOT steps in at some point in time. It will terminate right around the property of OmniSource and John Deere, and then it will go from there. Now, at some point in time, if DOT picks it back up, they may carry it over to 66, which will then get it on the Beltway up to 52. But that's a more way long range project than what this extension would be.
Now, where it shows it ending there in red behind OmniSource, is there an existing road there now?
There is not. That is the part that would need to be constructed, and they would probably construct like just a driveway from OmniSource and John Deere up to that road, and so it would terminate there at the property line. And there are a long ways out from designing it, but my guess would be if DOT has any aspirations of continuing that road further, it's a pretty good stretch over to 66 there in Walkertown.
Right.
They would design it so that it could be extended at some point in the future. But, there's a lot of right of way between there that has to be acquired and everything else. So right now it would terminate and be probably a driveway just down to OmniSource and John Deere. And it might be that you could maybe work with them and somehow get a public street from Mountain Street back to it that could be used by the public as well. But that's way down the road than in the design phase, obviously.
I'm a big fan of having a ramp on and off that 74 on West Mountain Street. That's what needs to happen.
You're
It'd be
exactly
a whole lot
right.
cheaper, and they could do it tomorrow. And I understand they acquired the right of way for that.
They may have. It was initially back 15 years ago or better, probably. Right at 18 to 20 years ago, when that beltway was designed, there were ramps planned at West Mountain Street, right there around Pisgah Church.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you what happened to them. I was on the TAC board when that took place, but basically when they showed up in the final design and final plan, there were no ramps there. And I don't know if that has to do with Norfolk Southern crossing back and forth over the railroad, the graveyard at the church, or what. I just don't know, but you're exactly right. It would be a lot better if they were there. That would solve a lot of the problem here. You may not have to build a road over, but it's what they did when they built that and didn't put any ramps on it, is they forced a lot of traffic on our western end of town near Doe Run and out off Hopkins Road. They're forcing a lot of that traffic now is going to Walkertown to get on it, which I'm sure Walkertown really appreciated. They needed some extra traffic, but at some point they may come back and revisit that and do some ramps, but I haven't heard.
Curtis, what could we do to initiate maybe revisiting that with Pat Ivy? Would it be helpful for us to sort of resurrect that idea with him?
I would probably suggest starting, at the next TAC meeting, just have a conversation with Pat.
Okay.
And say, hey, what would it take to do some ramps at West Mountain Street there at Pisgah and see what he says. I know they've got quite a bit of rise over Mountain Street. So, you know, from looking at it, they could probably get a couple ramps in going each direction, you know, whether they could probably get an on ramp going north pretty easily and maybe get an off ramp going south pretty easily. But the other two ramps, I think, would be maybe difficult to do.
Maybe we can find somebody to talk with Pat about that at the next TAC
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah. So if the board is inclined to do this, if you'll just make a motion that we send a letter of support, we'll get that drafted up and sent out to them. And if you got any more questions, be glad to answer any more questions.
I move that we do so, Madam Mayor, if there are no other questions. If you're ready to do that.
I don't know, how do y'all feel about this? It's seeming like there's not a lot of support to recommend this. I mean, we could pause and get more information.
Well, I mean, I know where they're going with this, and I think we have to do something. OmniSource and Deere, they are a big part of our community, and they're moving in that direction. And I think it's fair to say that they're relying on that in the future. So I think we necessarily have to support it. Like I said, I'd rather have ramps off of that 74, but, you know, every time I say something about that, people look at me like I'm crazy.
And that might, and you mentioned more, there's no more information to get. Basically, they're asking to do the feasibility study, so there's no more information to give you other than the fact they're asking for support to do a feasibility study. All the information will come out of that feasibility study, and it might very well be that if they do the express feasibility study, they may very quickly learn we just need to go over here and put some ramps on the 74.
Put the political pressure there.
But I don't think they don't know any of that until they do the study of at least looking to see what it's going to take to do the widening of Lemuel Springs. They already have the widening on the plan, and to do the possible extension. Once they know that, then you've got the more information that you need, and you also know what the other options are that might be better. So,
Well, do we want to ask for the feasibility of adding ramps there, like John is saying as well?
I think you're crossing two projects up, and right now they're asking for the feasibility study to look at widening Lemuel Road. I think one may lead to the other, but they already know the feasibility of adding the ramps most likely because they just completed the Beltway. I think that's a separate conversation entirely. I think now, I mean, you're not obligating anything by supporting the feasibility study except for finding out more information as to whether or not it's even feasible. You're not going to know anything until you do that feasibility study. You don't even know whether it's possible to extend Lemuel Springs Road over to John Deere. So either way you go, the first step, if the board ever wants to look at taking some traffic off of Mountain Street and Bodenhammer Street via this route here, is going to be doing the feasibility study. All they're asking is to speed it up. I think once you do that, then you can come back and look and say, okay, we've got the feasibility study. It's going to cost X amount of dollars. Let's look at the possibility of adding ramps, which they should already know. And then you go from there. But this is the first step in doing any of that. And again, there's no more information to get. They don't even know the layout of the road. I mean, that will kind of be determined in the study. They know that they are widening Lemuel Springs. Beyond that, they don't know anything.
Bill, I would support this if you make the motion. I would second the motion.
If you can go ahead and Go ahead and make the motion.
I'd make a motion again that we issue the letter of support that's requested in the letter from the Department of Community and Economic Development for Forsyth County and Greater Winston-Salem, Inc.
Okay, I've got a motion by Bill,
I would second that motion.
second by John. All those in favor? All those opposed? Keith, we've got 4 in favor, 1 opposed. All right. Okay, is there anything further to report, Curtis?
I have, the next item will be just a brief demonstration of the new body cameras in the police department. We've had the same type cameras for several years. The board approved in the last budget, or actually in this budget, to purchase new body cameras. We've gotten some of those in and do a little bit more, has some more functions than the ones that we currently have. The biggest of those is they can actually watch the officers. Once the body camera comes on, someone down in the PD can watch that camera while the officer is out doing whatever it is, on the scene there. So Captain Pittman, Chief Summers, I've already demoted you, see what happens. Captain Tilley, they'll share that with you.
Madam Mayor, members of the board, you've approved a lot of money for us over the years for equipment, and this is the 3rd generation of cameras. We were one of the first departments to ever have body-worn cameras in the state, and I thought it was interesting. I think you guys will find this interesting as well. And the body-worn cameras have come so far now that they're not just cameras, and it adds a whole new realm of technology to what we're doing. And Captain Pittman, this was his project, from the testing and evaluating to acquisition, and now we're sitting at about 6 to 8 weeks of being live with these things. And so I'll give it the floor to him to do a demonstration, and then we'll all 3 be available if you have any questions or comments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, the board. Thank you, Mr. Swisher. So one of the main things about the Axon body-worn camera 3 that it has is that it has GPS in the system, built into the camera. And if you don't mind, I'm gonna walk over to Catherine's table just so we can activate the camera, and y'all can see. Right here is a live shot of all of our cameras that we have activated that are on duty right now. If you look you can see the screen where they're green. That means that the body camera is on, however, it's not recording. Anywhere you see a red dot, if you look in the middle, Catherine, if you can go to the middle, you can double click on that where it says 2. So right there, so as we have an Officer Gillespie and with a red dot around his camera, it's showing that his body camera right now is currently recording. What I'm going to do is I'm going to activate my camera, and it'll come up onto the screen. Catherine, if you can click on the Zoom to Fit button. And it takes about 3 to 8 seconds for it to actually transfer from the camera to the database here on the screen. And so, Catherine, if you can click on the recording button there. And if you can go to the left where it has Gillespie Park, and you can go down and where it says Eric Pittman, if you don't mind, if you can click the live stream. You might want to get a lot of reverb. There we go. So right now what we have is this is the camera right now that we're watching. So you can see whatever the camera's seeing, we're seeing live time. Yep, Mr. Barrow, there you go, sir. So there's about a half a second delay. So it's pretty instantaneous. Also, it'll show on a map, and it'll show the actual live, like if we move, it'll actually go with the officer, so there's no delay in that. So one instance that we had that I felt like it has been advantageous for us is that we had a foot pursuit a couple weeks ago that actually ended up into another jurisdiction. The officer knew approximately the location where he was in, the neighborhood, but that neighborhood consisted of approximately 1,000 houses. So we knew the neighborhood, but we didn't know what street it was. The supervisors were able to click on to this app here, and they were able to find the officer and tell the responding officers what street the officer was on. And then we were able to apprehend the suspect not too long after that. So, and what I'll do is I'll actually take this to y'all so y'all can kind of just look at it. And all the videos go into a program what's called evidence.com, which allows us to streamline and share any evidence that we collect via Axon to not only the district attorney's office, but also to defense attorneys. So it eliminates the process of having to burn DVDs and take them to the office, and it just really streamlines that and makes it a quick process. Right now, we have our communications division. They have access to this, so they can actually look on a screen. They have it up at all times to where they look at a screen and can let officers know, where the officer is if they're needing help. It's also advantageous for us if we need a description of a suspect, and so therefore, if the officer can't get it out on the radio, we can click on the live stream and we can get an actual visual and say, hey, it's a person with a white shirt on, so forth. So with Axon, they also have we have triggering mechanisms. So if an officer pulls out their taser and turns it on, it automatically turns on the camera. The same goes for if they draw their weapon, and also if they activate the blue lights on their police vehicle. So you don't have to worry about there being a delay or stress coming upon them and they forget to press the button.
That's very cool. I like that.
So you
When
might have
y'all
any
gonna do the
questions about
same thing to the in-cars,
Sir?
to your in-car cameras?
Yeah, so we're looking at transferring to in-car cameras when our contract runs out with the current program that we have now.
When's that run out?
I believe 2 years, sir. So there's a button on the front. If you just hold it down. There you go. And it'll go away. And Catherine, you can X out of that.
A lot lighter.
Yes, it is than the current camera or the previous camera that we had. Yes.
It looks like it's more compact as well.
I like that.
How many of the previous cameras do we have? Will this replace a portion of those? Or?
Right. Yes. So we actually have 71 for every officer. Okay. So we have 71 cameras. We have 71 officers when we're full. So we're fully equipped for the department.
So with the new ones?
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
So this thing is gonna automatically come on with your siren,
Lights.
the lights.
Yes. And so you have to be within a certain.
Your weapon or your taser.
Right. So
Is there a way that you can manually cut it off?
I'm sorry.
Is there a way that you can manually cut this camera off?
Yes. So you would hold down the front button, and you would when you would press it in, you'd hold it in for approximately 3 seconds, and it'll turn off the camera.
What happens in a situation like that where a police officer draws his weapon or manually cuts off the camera?
So that would be, within our policy that they do not do that. So it'd be a policy violation. That is correct. Another good feature is that if you're within a certain proximity, they say between anywhere from 0 to 75 feet, and I activate my taser, and I have other officers around that have cameras, it'll automatically activate their cameras too. And that not only goes with our department, that also with any department that has Axon. So if the sheriff's office, Winston-Salem Police Department, Greensboro, High Point, any of those, if they are in close proximity to us and they activate their taser or they pull their weapon, and they have also the same signal triggers, then our cameras will activate also.
Are there any questions? Thank you for the demonstration. We appreciate it.
I bel-
Oh,
this-
wait, go
This
ahead.
makes the police department and what y'all do, which is safeguard the domestic tranquility of Kernersville, it makes it better, correct?
Yes, it
It's
does.
more transparent and it's good all the way around. It makes us a better town and a better police department, correct?
That is correct, sir.
Good deal. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Any other questions? My apologies, Mr. Barrow, I didn't see you. You're hiding behind Bill. He had his chair pulled forward and I couldn't see you. Thank you for the demonstration. We appreciate it. Stay safe out there.
Madam Mayor, the only other thing I have is you have a motion for a closed session for attorney-client privilege. At some point, if someone, once all the board has discussed anything else, if someone will make that motion.
Okay, is there anything further in open session? All right, any kind of concluding remarks or comments for the public session? Mr. Thompson? Mr. Barrow? Mr. Apple?
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to say not only the leadership of our police department across the board, but your leadership as mayor and Curtis's leadership as town manager to get us this quickly where we need to be, particularly in view of recent developments and questions about police conduct and so forth. Not in our department, but in other parts of the country. But I agree with Alderman Barrow that it keeps us out of a lot of that type of controversy, and I think your leadership across the board is to be commended by our board. Thank you for what you do.
I agree, thank you. Mr. Gorham?
Oh, nothing, please.
Mr. Penix? I'd like to give a compliment to our IT department. I think some of our key employees to help chart the course of uncertainty when we switched from live meetings to remote meetings. We're in the IT department, work closely with our town manager and our town clerk to ensure everything went smoothly. And I have to give a shout out to Adam Hutchins, the director of the department, and also Matthias, who just was an expert with many things that he's done for the town of Kernersville. Just want to express my appreciation to both of them for all they've done to keep our technology running smooth and operating properly. And we're excited to have some new employees in that department and newer employees in that department, and excited to have them have a career with the town of Kernersville. So we appreciate all that our IT staff does, and just wanted to express my appreciation to them, especially because they also interact with the police department, making sure that we have an ability to see all these cameras and have the technology in the police department that allows us to do all these really, really neat and innovative things. So they're kind of also behind the scenes making the town operate properly, and their work's appreciated. All right. Thank you again for the demonstration, and to Doran and Ernie for the presentations about the various projects. You know, there's oftentimes it feels like we're just responding to the things that are urgent in front of us on that evening, and it's really good to take a moment sometimes and look ahead to, you know, the design of the parking lot or some of the resources that are being deployed to benefit the citizens in our community. So this was a good meeting with a shorter agenda to do some of those things. So I appreciate all the presentations we had. Is there anything else before the board in an open session? If not, do I have a motion to enter closed session?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3, I move that the board go into closed session to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, which privilege is hereby acknowledged.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. We're now in closed session. Welcome back to the regular meeting of the Kernersville Board of Aldermen. Is there any further business before the board this evening? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Got a motion by Alderman Thompson,
Second.
second by Alderman Gorham. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you for joining us. This meeting is now adjourned.